This is a Best in Climate episode of Earth Feels, where each week your hosts Rose and Christine read to you from some of the best climate-related blogs and articles on the web.
Hi there, it's Rose with this week's Best in Climate. It's going to be a little bit different today in that there's more than one article I want to quote for you today. So this is more of an informational Best in Climate. I want to start off with announcing that today, Alaska's Tongass National Forest, which is one of the world's largest temperate forests, which had also been protected for nearly 2 decades from logging and development, is now open for business. Essentially, millions of acres are now open for the building of roads and for logging, which seems like a pretty distressing thing to me. Tongass National Forest, in addition to being the home of black bear, grizzlies, salmon, moose, some incredible wildlife, is also a major carbon sink. There's been much written about Brazil and the fires that were going on in Brazil this year and the Amazon burning. If you think of the Amazon as the world's lungs, well, the Tongass is the lungs of North America. It covers most of southeast Alaska, and it's a major carbon sink. It absorbs at least 9% of all carbon that is absorbed by forests in North America. 9%. And now we're just saying, okay. So for those of you who don't understand how trees absorb carbon, I want to give you a quick little lesson, and it's pretty simple. If you think a tree is comprised of its leaves and its stems and the trunk and its roots, when you look at a tree, you'll see that maybe 5% of the tree is its leaves, and then 15% is stems, 60% goes into the trunk, and then there's 20% that's devoted to the roots below the surface. So trees are kind of superheroes. Through photosynthesis, the tree's leaves pull in carbon dioxide and water and use the energy of the sun to convert into chemical compounds as sugars that feed the tree. But a byproduct of that chemical reaction is oxygen is produced and released by the tree. So one large tree can provide a day's supply of oxygen for up to 4 people. That's amazing, right? But trees also store carbon dioxide in their fibers, which help clean the air and reduce the negative effects that the CO2 has on our environment. In fact, according to the Arbor Day Foundation, in 1 year, a mature tree will absorb more than 48 pounds of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and release oxygen in exchange. So when you're breathing air, fresh air, you need to give a hug to a tree to thank it for what it's providing. So it's more than a little distressing that this forest is now open to logging when it's been protected for a couple of decades. It's really America's last climate sanctuary. I wanted to juxtapose that with a couple of different articles that I read today about tree planting that's going on other places in the world. The first is an article that was published on Al Monitor, written by Rasha Mahmoud, an Egyptian journalist, scriptwriter, and filmmaker, who has written for Anadolu Agency, HuffPost, and Huda Sotak. I will leave her contact information on our Earth Feels podcast page as well. And it's entitled, How Egypt is Growing Forests in the Middle of the Desert. And I'll just read you that real quick. Amid the success of the Serapean forest, a massive plantation in Egypt, the country is now looking to plant more desert lands with trees as part of plans to fight climate change. Growing a forest in the middle of the desert has become reality, with Egypt eyeing more of these projects to support its economy and fight environmental and climate changes. Egypt has managed to plant trees in the desert using wastewater as part of plans to preserve the environment, reduce pollution, and optimize the use of natural water resources. I'm probably saying this incorrectly. The Serapeum forest, Serapium forest, which has boomed despite the drought and rainfall deficit, consists of 494 acres of trees planted in Ismailia City in northeast Egypt. The forest has been a vital project that set a precedent for other projects to reduce water pollution as well as unemployment. The Central Administration of Reforestation, affiliated with Egypt's Ministry of Agriculture, launched work on the Serapeum forest back in 1998. A documentary was released in 2014 showing the results of this project. And I will add the link to that documentary. It's on YouTube. Be forewarned, it's in a language that I couldn't understand. But if you turn the sound down, you can kind of get the idea. In light of the success of the Serapeum Forest project, African countries followed suit. In 2019, 21 African countries, including Egypt, embarked on a tree planting project dubbed the Great Green Wall. Preparations for the project had started back in 2007. 12 African countries, including Egypt, launched the project from Nigeria, and soon 9 other countries joined the initiative. It starts from Senegal in the far west of the continent to Djibouti, again, I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, I'm certain, in the east. The project, of which only 15% has been completed, stretches over nearly 8,000 kilometers. That's 5,000 miles. It is scheduled to be completed by the end of 2030. This forest will extend over 247 million acres at an estimated cost of $8 billion. Rajai Safan, project manager in Serapeum, told Al Monitor that using sewage water to grow a forest in the desert is a golden idea and helps boost the economy. He explained that the treated sewage water will help transform large areas of the Egyptian desert into arable and economically viable areas. He said that the evergreen forest would purify the air, combat desertification, and help reduce the high summer temperature. He added that there is a tree leaf cutter machine in the Serapeum forest, allowing cypress, pine, and other deciduous conifer leaves to be used as fertilizers and feed for the livestock. There is also a possibility to raise livestock without significant cost except for the potable water. Safan pointed out that in addition to its role in managing soil fertility, this forest serves the local economy. He explained that a good management would allow some planted trees, such as mahogany and camphor, to serve as a permanent source of income in Egypt by exporting the trees or using them in local wood industry. Commenting on how the treated sewage is channeled to Serapeum forest, Safan explained that the wastewater is channeled in a big underground basin high in microorganisms, and oxygen is pumped to accelerate the water purification process. The water, high in nitrogen and phosphorus, which are good for the forest, is then stored throughout the forest. According to Safan, the trees have grown 4 times faster than in any other forest in Europe where the weather is much more favorable. While an average of 60 years is needed for a tree in Europe to become mature, 15 years is more than enough for the trees to mature in this forest. The goal behind growing forest in Egypt is to optimize the use of treated sewage water, produce wood and create new wood-based industries, produce biofuels, protect the country against desertification and erosion, solve the problem of food security, stabilize sand dunes, protect the coasts, and boost tourism. In light of the success of the Serapeum Forest project, African countries are following suit. In 2019, African countries, including Egypt, embarked on a tree planting project dubbed the Great Green Wall. So this got me pretty excited. And as way leads on to way, as my favorite poet Robert Frost would say, my next stop on my internet journey was at thegreenwall.org. And I want to read you from their homepage about the incredible work that they're doing. The Great Green Wall, growing a world wonder. The Great Green Wall is an African-led movement with an epic ambition to grow an 8,000-kilometer natural wonder of the world across the entire width of Africa. A decade in and roughly 15% underway, the initiative is already bringing life back to Africa's degraded landscapes at an unprecedented scale, providing food security, jobs, and a reason to stay for the millions who live along its path. The wall promises to be a compelling solution to the many urgent threats not only facing the African continent, but the global community as a whole, notably climate change, drought, famine, conflict, and migration. Once complete, the Great Green Wall will be the largest living structure on the planet, 3 times the size of the Great Barrier Reef, improving millions of lives. The Great Green Wall is taking root in Africa's Sahel region at the southern edge of the Sahara Desert, one of the poorest places on the planet. More than anywhere else on Earth, the Sahel is on the forefront of climate change, and millions of locals are already facing its devastating impact. Persistent droughts, lack of food, conflicts over dwindling natural resources, and mass migration to Europe are just some of the many consequences. Yet communities from Senegal in the west to Djibouti in the east are fighting back. Since the birth of the initiative in 2007, life has started coming back to the land, bringing improved food security, jobs, and stability to people's lives. A global symbol. The Great Green Wall isn't just for the Sahel. It's a global symbol for humanity overcoming its biggest threat, our rapidly degrading environment. It shows that if we can work with nature, even in challenging places like the Sahel, we can overcome adversity and build a better world for generations to come. And it's about growing more than trees. More than just growing trees and plants, the Great Green Wall is transforming the lives of millions in the Sahel region. The Great Green Wall makes a vital contribution to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, a global agenda which aims to achieve a more equitable and sustainable world by 2030. The Great Green Wall is growing a new world wonder across the entire width of Africa. It's growing fertile land, one of humanity's most precious natural assets. It's growing a wall of hope against abject poverty, growing food security for the millions that go hungry every day, growing health and well-being for the world's poorest communities, growing improved water security so women and girls don't have to spend hours fetching water every day, growing gender equity, empowering women with new opportunities, growing sustainable energy, powering communities towards a brighter future, growing green jobs, giving real incomes to families across the Sahel, growing economic opportunities to boost small businesses and commercial enterprise, growing a reason to stay to help break the cycle of migration, growing sustainable consumption patterns to protect the natural capital of the Sahel, growing resilience to climate change in a region where temperatures are rising faster than anywhere else on Earth, growing a symbol of peace in countries where conflict continues to displace communities, growing a symbol of interfaith harmony across Africa, and growing strategic partnerships to accelerate rural development in Africa. So there you have it. I started out feeling so devastated by the news about the Tongass National Forest this morning. And of course, I did my due diligence, started Googling about forests and carbon sinks, and voila, thanks to the power of Google, I was able to offset the negative news with something really, really positive that humanity is doing. And I guess we have to just keep our fingers crossed and know that our next president will undo the damage that, as of today, can start happening up in southeastern Alaska. So here's the thing. And what I love about tree planting is that it can be done by literally anyone, even if you don't have a place in your own yard. I want to give a shout out here to treesisters.org, a charity that I support with a monthly stipend. Although your stipend doesn't have to be monthly, you can do a one-time donation. Essentially, their founder, the always brilliant Claire Dubois, and yes, the way the universe works, her last name, her surname, actually means of the woods of the forest in French. Claire hires women to reforest in the tropics. Tree Sisters empowers a network of women all around the world to change the world, essentially through tree planting. Her organization has planted over 10 million trees to date through donations, through your generous donations, through our generous donations. They're growing trees in Brazil. They're restoring mangrove and dry deciduous forests in Madagascar. They're working in the watershed of Mount Kenya, restoring cloud forests in India, reforesting the burnt lands in Nepal, just to name a few, with a goal of planting over 1 billion trees. Anything is possible if we imagine it, and tree planting helps us all breathe. I'll add the link to our earthfeelspodcast.com page. Make a monthly donation. Make a one-time donation. Make a donation in someone else's name. Help reforest the planet. And thanks again, Claire, for your incredible work. There's lots of possibility out there. What we focus on expands. Next time you take a deep breath, take a look at a tree that's nearby and thank it for giving you life. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time. That's this week's episode of Earth Feels. Special thanks to singer-songwriter Kristen Hoffman for generously allowing us to use Song for the Ocean. Thanks for listening.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss an episode. Catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Children of the earth, I'm calling out. There's a mission for you and for me.